Hi, today I will show you how to turn this big broken TV into this fake window. So of course, these days I am a lot inside, and when you're inside, light is very important. It can refresh you and also give the space a nice ambience. However, my living room doesn't have a window with direct daylight, so that's kind of dark even when you turn all the lights on. So in this video I will show you how to turn this broken television into a LED panel which simulates daylight. It's a very easy project, but before I begin, I need to mention that I was fully inspired by DIY Perks. As far as I know, he came up with the idea, and you should definitely check his videos out. I'll link them in the description. For this project, you only need three things: a broken television, an LCD screen, a LED strip and everything that powers it, and some tools to get the television out of its case. Just any screwdriver which fits will work. So let's start by disassembling the television. Flip it over first so you can get to the screws at the back. This will be the first step. In all the steps of this process, make sure you recycle the parts. There are a lot of plastic parts but also electronic parts inside. So you can dispose them using some boxes or something. Now we will begin to disassemble all the electronic parts. But be careful, some parts might be still under some electricity. So I will show you how to watch out for that when I finish everything. Okay, so this is the part where you have to be very careful. I will show you. Always pick the electronic boards from mostly plastic parts. Be careful of metal parts because they still conduct electricity. So you can pick it off, and at the back side you can see all the electronic connections. So there are still some capacitors on this board, like this one, and they still have some electricity in them. So try to not touch the back side of it because you can get a nasty shock. Store them away safely in a box or something. So once we got all the electric parts off, we are going to try to get to the actual screen by taking the back and the front off. So a good way to get this back side separate of the actual screen is to flip it over and then lift the front side off. It comes off very easily. So now, this is an important step. There are some screws at the front side which keep the frame, but the frame actually is quite nice aluminium and we want to use it again afterwards. So make sure you stay onto these screws, put them in a separate plastic bag or something. So something common you find on these TVs is plastic clips to hold the metal pieces in place. So what you can do best is to get a flat screwdriver and then just pop them off. So first we need to get rid of the top ones on this side. Then we can easily get this off. And then afterwards you can pop these off like so. Actually. So stick to these metal pieces of the frame and then we can flip the TV over and get the plastic part off. So this is really nice. This is the actual LCD screen. So in here are the RGB LEDs which color your image. You don't need this thing, maybe you can use it for something else, but otherwise just make sure you bring it to the recycling part. So this is the part what I told you about earlier, and you need to be careful with this because later on, if you're done, you can click on this best plastic frame again, and then you can use it as a nice frame for the finished product. So try not to break things and very carefully lift all these plastic clips to release the plastic frame. Okay, so this is the interesting part, because there are a few layers in this television which create the backlight of the television. You cannot use every television for this. There are only specific televisions suitable for this. Although most people have those, there are still some old televisions which have different systems. This is called an LCD screen, so you use the LED panel I just showed you, and you use a backlight. And the type of backlight is essential because this backlight has some diffusion layers which you need for your fake window. But different televisions use, for example, small glass tubes which light the back, or just LED strips which light the back. So make sure you get this kind of television. You can find on tweakers.net what the type of backlight is, and you should need edge lit. Other types are CCFL, I think so, and there are some different types, but you need the edge lit back type. So let me show you what these layers are. The first layer is a diffusion layer. This diffuses the light. What is important with all these layers is make sure you be very careful with them, because if you damage them, you will see that in the end result. So make sure you wash your hands and make sure you only touch them when necessary and place them in a safe spot, for example on your bed or something where it's soft. And as you can beautifully see, this layer diffuses light. It makes it softer. I think this next layer is also a diffusion layer. So in different televisions are different kind of layers. We will get to the special one in a second. Another diffusion layer. So this lens is a diffusion layer with very small dots on it and a kind of lens called a Fresnel lens. This lens transforms the light and directs it in one direction. So the light beams are parallel, just like the actual light of the sun from outside. So this way it seems like the backlight is coming from very far away, while it's just at the back of the board. And the last piece is just a reflector layer, and then you are again back on the aluminum. So I must say I found some different kind of televisions while trying this project out, and this is again something new I encountered. The first television I got to had a different lens, so that was a separate diffusion layer and a separate Fresnel layer. I'm going to try that with this as well and show you how you can get a nice fake window. So in this part we are going to replace the regular LED strips from the television, which are often on one of the sides, either the short side or as well at the long side. We are going to replace them with our own LEDs, because these LEDs from the television itself, which power the backlight, are kind of blue always. So if you buy nice daylight strips, you get a more natural light from your LED panel. What works the best is screw off this aluminum holders and then try with a screwdriver get the old LED strips off and then replace it with your own new LED strips. So most of these LED strips have adhesive tape on the back, so you can use this. And the first thing you need to do is get rid of the adhesive tape still stuck to this aluminum piece. So get rid of that first and then just stick it on there. When attaching the light strip, you need to cut it on length. So hold it first at the part where you want to attach it, like this, and then find the nearest point with the two copper dots. That one. And then very carefully trim it in the middle of those dots. That's it. Then you can just stick it on the aluminum. So soldering took me quite some time because I am very inexperienced in soldering. However, it's important when you have two separate LED strips because you need to connect them. The project is a little bit easier when you only have the edge lid from a long side. So therefore you don't have to use the both sides. However, soldering, it took me like a few hours and then I got it right. And with a lot of hot glue, I compensated my lack of skill. So I'll show you a bit about how the soldering is done. So here you can see how the LED strip is connected. It's just stuck to the aluminum plate, and as you can see, here are the copper parts which you can cut the LED strip in half. At that kind of point you also solder the connections. So the connector piece here is soldered with its wires to both of those pieces. There's a positive and a negative side, so I attach the red wire to the positive and the black wire to the negative side. So then you come all the way at the end of the piece, and then again I soldered two cables to the positive and negative piece of the LED strip. The cable goes then to the back, as I showed before, and then over here you have to make sure it's also connected to the positive and the negative side of this one. So make sure the colors are both the same. So here the blue is on the negative and over here the blue is also on the negative. So let me tell you a little bit about LED strips, because there are so many LED strips to buy, and I did a little bit of research on what to buy for this project. So you need three things: the LED strip itself, a power adapter which suits the voltage of the LED strip, and some kind of switch, either a regular click switch or some kind of a dimmer. You even have switches which connect to your smart home system, so that would also be great. Let me tell you a little bit more about the details of the LED strip. So this LED strip is 5 meters long, so you can make a lot of these panels from it. The first thing which is important, the hardware, is the connector piece. You have connector pieces which connect without soldering. However, I would not recommend them because they are a little bit more fragile than this kind of connector pieces. So with this connector piece, you can easily add it to the AC adapter, which I just showed you. Furthermore, there are a few specific specifications I want to tell you about these LED strips. First, the most important thing, the CRI, which is the color rendering index. Basically how much it looks like actual daylight. If you go out in the sun, the color rendering index, the CRI rate, is 100%. So you want to get as close to that as possible to get an actual like a fake window. This actual LED strip is 85 CRI, I think so. Actually, definitely above 80. But you also have LED strips above 90, 95, even 97 CRI. So that will give you a little bit better result, but it's also a bit more pricey. The second thing to really note about LED strips is the color which they produce. So this is bright white, which is about 4000 kelvins, but you also have a little bit more blue white, or you sometimes find daylight white. The supplier where you get your LED strips can advise you in which kind of color you should get it. The next thing is power and amount of lumen. So you have LED strips with a lot more LEDs per meter. So these are, I think, 60 LEDs per meter, but you also have 120 and even 240 LEDs per meter. This will give you a more diffused light because you have a more higher density of LEDs, but also brighter. And I didn't want my LED panel to be too bright because then you cannot look into it anymore. I got these LED strips from ledstripkoning.nl. I will link it in the description. You have a lot of sources where you can get LED strips, but they help me very well, so I would recommend them. You can also check the video from DIY Perks because he also recommends a light strip with this, which has even a higher CRI index, but is a little bit more expensive. So yeah, take a choose from your budget. Let's see how my LED strip strips work. Yes. So I would say they work very well. The connections are very strong. Be careful with them. The next thing to do is to put back all the layers. That's the reflector layer. And this is the Fresnel layer. You have to make sure that the Fresnel layer is against the LEDs. If it's above, it won't diffuse the light as good as it does. Look at this. One more important thing. I just cleaned it, but don't do it with water because it will get into the grooves of the Fresnel layer. So just do it with a dry toilet paper or kitchen paper, and also don't go too far because you will add 2 diffusion layers, so you won't see very small spots. So as you can see, it works pretty well, really nice. So it's almost done now. The only thing we have to do is put back the frame. When you put back the frame, you have to note 2 things. The first is the plastic frame won't be able to go back because you added some wires. So then you can cut off with an iron saw, cut out some pieces of the plastic frame, as I did here. So then you can put it back over the wires. The other thing to note is when you put back the frame, you should always keep your lights on. The connections of the LED strip could be a little bit fragile. So if you put back the strip, you don't want to press too hard. And if you keep the light on, then you can make sure that it's still working. What I had once is I attached all the frames right, and then the LED strip was not working and I had to remove them all again. So keep the lights on. I will show you how to do this. So your new LED strip might be wider than your old LED strip, like this. So therefore the sides of these frames might not fit correctly. I used a little bit of duct tape to attach them, but again, don't pressure this too much because then you might be bending the LED strips or something. So now, finally, your panel is done and ready to be hung up. It is quite a beautiful light. You can easily look into it. And as you can see now, it clearly makes a lot of difference. So now I want to show you the finished product. So let's take a look in my living room. As you can see, all the lights are on, but it's still kind of dark in here. And let me show you the result when I put the flick window on. Like that. There you have it. A fake window in the living room without actual windows. And as you can see right now, you can also attach it to the ceiling. So you can actually attach this panel to the ceiling just like a mirror. So you put 2 hooks at the short side, like this, and you put 2 hooks at the other end of the long sides. Altogether, the LED strip costs like 30 euros, but it's 5 meters, so you can make a lot of screens with it. A dimmer of different sorts costs 10 euros. The actual adapter costs 10 euros. So the TV is for free. So yeah, therefore it's kind of a cheap project as well, and it really lights your living room very comfortably. So one more thing I would like to show you, which really helps me get up in the morning, is to try and make a wake-up light out of this modified television screen. So what I did, I bought this quite cheap Aquarium timer, and now in the morning it takes half an hour for the screen to go from off to slowly turn on. So that way you wake up very slowly, and this is actually a very gentle and kind of cheap wake-up light, which works really well for me. So with all these kind of modifications, you can also use splitters or some different dimmers. You can actually attach it to your smart home system if you would like, and then you can make a various uses for this screen. Yeah, so good luck making it yourself, and if you have any questions for me, just ask me, I guess. Later!